Hello, Startup Vision. I am Philippe Botteri. I'm a partner with Accel based in London.
Hello, Philippe. Thank you so much for being with us here on Startup Vision TV. So you represent Accel, and we're going to talk about this great portfolio and philosophy you have at Accel. So in 1983, the two co-founders created Accel based on the quote by Louis Pasteur, "Chance favors the prepared mind." And when you see what Accel has done, you know, all the achievements, it's really, I mean, it's definitely not chance, and we can imagine it's a lot of hard work, isn't it?
Well, it has been a lot of hard work in in the past 35 years or so. I think so. The firm, as you mentioned, was created by Arthur and Jim in Silicon Valley, and that's where we have our heart, and that's where the culture is coming from. But we realized over time that Silicon Valley did not have the monopoly on innovation, and this led us to open the European office in London in 2000. So we're celebrating our 20-year anniversary. And we also have an office in India that we opened about 10 years ago. So today I would say we're one of the very few early stage venture firm with a truly global network that we have developed over the past 3, 2, and 1 decade in the different continents. And this is what makes us different, and it is that network that we give to our portfolio companies and hopefully help them and give them an unfair competitive advantage.
And when we see the list of your portfolio, you know, it's so impressive. Dropbox, Slack, Spotify, DocuSign, Algolia, Facebook, PeopleDog, Venmo, to name a few. Accel had 292 exits and defines itself as a fund backing those creating the future. So what is your secret sauce to find all those incredible founders?
Yeah, so you mentioned that the firm was started with a quote of Louis Pasteur, which is the chance favors the prepared mind, and this this really underpins our investment strategy, which is we want to be first, the first to work with the talented entrepreneur that we invest in, and we go and do our investment with a prepared mind. So what does this mean? It means that the way we work to find our investment is really to analyze specific sector and specific trends within the sector. And we're very active among like 3 general sectors, which is one, everything around B2B, cloud computing, SaaS, security, a lot of machine learning and BI these days. Very active on all the digital consumer, mobile application, e-commerce, marketplaces. And the third leg is anything around fintech and online financial services. And so within all these sectors, we're going to work to understand really what are the trends in this sector. And once we have identified them, we're going to identify all the different companies that are all the startups and legacy players that are playing into this field, understand the competitive dynamics, speak to the different startups in the space, and hopefully make an investment there. And so just to give you an example of that, in 2017, we did a lot of work around enterprise automation and trying to understand what was the next generation of technologies that would make the enterprise more productive and could automate a lot of the tasks, either through AI or through other type of automation, to really make enterprise more efficient. And that's how we came across a company called UiPath, which is the leader in robotic process automation. So what they do, I mean, they've created small robots which can automate what people would do on a desktop. And then there's a cloud orchestrator which actually enables enterprises to manage thousands of different robots. So for example, if you work in a finance department and you receive emails with bills that you need to send into a workflow for approval, robots can, scan the inbox, identify the invoice, extract the invoice, identify the components of the invoice, and put them into your ERP system. And all that is done automatically. So that's what this company has been doing, and it's been an incredible ride since we invested in the company in early 2017, when they had around 5 million in recurring revenue, and last quarter they just passed the 400 million ARR mark. So it's been quite a ride, but it's just an illustration of kind of how we identify companies.
Also,
go ahead.
I mean, I saw that you like to be at the beginning of the adventure, and you like to follow them and everything. And also, we can see that the current crisis that we have, goes to more digitalization. So you're really in the right trend with what you do.
Yeah. So I mean, I think what you mentioned is right, which is we like to be first. In companies, and for UiPath, we're the first institutional investor in the company, and so we did actually the Series A. But after that, a year later, so one of the capabilities we've added to our firm is a growth fund. So on top of the early stage fund that we have in each of the region, we also have a global growth fund. And so as the company grew pretty fast from 5 to close to 50 million in the first year, after a year of investment, our growth fund came in and led the Series B in the company. So we like to continue to work closely with our investments along their entire life cycle.
So I would like to go to the global vision that you were mentioning. You have a great career yourself, Philippe. You were involved in many successful IPOs. You worked in the Silicon Valley for many years. You've been based now in London for a few years also. So you have a very good knowledge of the two ecosystems, the UK ecosystems, which is the most dynamic in Europe, and the one in Silicon Valley. Do you see, are there any differences that you see, a different energy, a different vision, and maybe you have a vision towards India because Accel is in India too? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. And so you made quite an interesting, two interesting points here. It's like, one is, how does Europe compare to the US? And the second one is like, how does UK compare to the rest of Europe? And I think these are 2 points that, are worth addressing. So I moved back from Silicon Valley in 2011. So that's about 9 years ago. At the time, the ecosystem was like so different from what it is today. But the reason why I actually moved from Silicon Valley to Europe, which 9 years ago didn't seem as an obvious move, is because I saw that something was happening in Europe. And in 2009, while I was at my previous firm in the US, I actually spotted a company called Criteo, which was leader in retargeting. And I thought, wow, this is a great company, and ended up investing in the company. And then they went, became public at $3 billion valuation, and had pretty successful ride. And to me, this kind of opened my eyes about the things that were starting to happen in Europe. And there was, from a competitive standpoint on the venture side, there weren't that many players. And the other thing I realized is that people and like smart entrepreneurs in Europe really wanted to work with a global platform, and they had global aspirations and not local aspirations. So to me, the move to Europe was natural, because I thought there was a big market opportunity that was on the verge of exploding. I wanted to be on a global platform, and Accel was a perfect platform for that. And I loved the team there, and thought it was very good fit for me. So that's why I decided to move to Europe. And initially, as you mentioned, the UK ecosystem and the Israeli ecosystem, to some extent, were the most developed. And if we look at our first funds, which we started in 2000, a lot of this fund was invested in Israel and in the UK. Now, if you fast forward, 20 years to today, I mean, innovation can come really from anywhere in Europe, and Europe has moved from being, you know, a two-country geography with Israel and the UK to being a collection of tech hubs where you have 10 or 12, which ranges from the UK, France, Berlin, Munich, Barcelona, Madrid. You know, you have Eastern Europe. You know, obviously Israel is still there, and the Nordics. So there is a much more dynamic ecosystem right now. And if the UK is still slightly ahead, I mean, when you look at the different numbers, in many ways, Paris and Berlin are not very far. And what's clear is that it is impossible to tell today where the next big company is going to emerge from in Europe. I mean, you look at, you know, UiPath, which is one of the fastest growing software company of its generation. And it came out of Bucharest in Romania. Like, who would have thought that, right? If you had asked anyone 10 years ago, you know, which country is going to generate a 7 billion software company, you know, I really doubt that people will have said, oh, of course, it's Bucharest, right? And that is, I mean, so the ecosystem has changed so much in the past 9 years. So I felt like the acceleration, you know, has been really fantastic. I think France and Paris have done, you know, very well, and you know, we have invested in, you know, many companies there, and you know, ranging from Showroom Privé, where we invested, I think, you know, in around, you know, 2010 or so, and since then, as you know, you mentioned PeopleDoc, Algolia, Doctolib, Payfit, Shift Technologies. So we've really ramped our pace there, and we've seen a lot of very interesting companies.
Yeah, we see so much energy going around the world, and it is great. You're absolutely right. So Accel says that the entrepreneurs of its portfolio are original, exceptional, and bold. So what could you do different in the next 10 years, for example?
Well, I think the one thing we're observing is that the digital transformation is accelerating, and if anything, what we are living right now, you know, with COVID, has been basically a view into the future. Like we've done in 3 or 4 months, the equivalent of 2 or 3 years of digital transformation. And I think for me, the future. If we look at the future, technology is going to be a part of every sector, every industry, and you know, the IT departments and the technology departments they're all going to become bigger and bigger and a core part of the offering. Like whether you're, you know, in transport, you know, or services, everything is going to be underpinned by technology. And so what this means is that technology companies are going to get bigger and bigger. And that's not going to change. And so all the trends that we've been seeing, I think, will continue to accelerate. So that means that there's going to be more and more money invested in technology, and that means that you know, we need to be better at keeping at the forefront of the different different technologies. And there's going to be a lot more happening in AI, automation, which you know, I mentioned. And you know, we'll have to keep pace with you know, with this market dynamics, and also from a geographic expansion. You know, I think if you look at, you know, 10, 15 years ago, the venture market was very much in the US. Then, you know, it started a bit in Europe and China and India, and now I think you're going to see a lot more hubs emerging all over the world. And so I think this is also one thing that, you know, we need to think about as a firm, is like, you know, where innovation is going to come from, and make sure that, you know, we can be there as well.
Yeah, you're right. We see a lot going on in Africa, for example, and continents and countries like that. Thank you so much, Philippe, for this insight and for this analysis of both the ecosystem and the vision for the future. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.